To everyone watching us from around the globe, good day. My name is Vignesh, and welcome to this, the second part of the HIT Foundation's Educational Leadership in a Crisis webinar series. It's a great pleasure to have many of you come back to join us for the second session, and I see many new members of our esteemed audience joining us today. It was said by Lee Iacocca, the famous American industrialist, in a completely rational society, the best of us would be teachers and the rest of us would have to settle for something else. Today, we explore how educators from around the region have been coping with the COVID-19 pandemic and its ensuing lockdowns. During today's webinars, we try to understand and look at examples of what school leaders have done to empower, to lead, to train, and to nurture their educators during this crisis. Many educators have struggled to move their teaching, something that they do really well, from an online modality. But these school leaders that you will hear today, who are graduates of the HIT Foundation and the University of Queensland's Certificate in Educational Leadership in Studies program, share their experiences in empowering their educators to make that transition to an online and blended learning modality. But beyond ensuring that our teachers are able to effectively teach online, how do we care for them as individuals impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic? They too have families. Many may have their own children whose schooling has been disrupted, spouse who are working from home, and they have to struggle with these challenges too. So what can be done to provide the educators in their schools the necessary support mechanisms to ensure that not only are they effective educators, but they, as individuals, as fellow human beings, are looked after and cared for during this difficult time. So today, we are really proud to have two exemplary school leaders and a distinguished and eminent scholar of educational leadership join us on our panel discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I would like to hand over to the moderator of our session, Associate Professor Vicente Reyes from the University of Nottingham. Vicente, please.
Welcome to all our friends from the Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, the United Kingdom, the United States, Vietnam, and the other countries that have decided to join us for our conversation today. For those of you who have come back for the second part of our three-step webinar series, well, we also welcome you back. The theme for today's conversation is nurturing your staff. We began last week by looking at mobilizing our community. We now focus on nurturing our staff. And next week we have another webinar that looks at nurturing and caring for our students. But for today's webinar, as Vignesh, our friend from the HIT Foundation, told us, we are blessed to have with us three very, very inspirational individuals who will share with us their experiences and their insights as we navigate the challenges of a crisis and how leaders respond to it. Let me introduce our participants, our panelists. The first one that we have is Vency, who is a school director of Kairos Gracia Christian School in Jakarta, Indonesia. She has had 15 years of experience at her school and has had 23 years teaching experience as well. We will also be joined by Professor Allan Walker, the Chair Professor of International Education at the Education University of Hong Kong. He was also director, or he is director of the Asia Pacific Center for Leadership and Change. Allan has had tremendous years of experience and exposure to different educational settings in Hong Kong, in Australia, and in Singapore. And then, of course, we have our first panelist. He is Domingo Lozande, principal at the Lingunan National High School in Valenzuela City, the Philippines. Domingo is also a national trainer of chemistry of the Philippines. We will be hearing these friends of ours share with us their experiences and some lessons in how they managed to address the challenges that they faced in these times of crisis. But before we actually head to that, we invite all of you, our friends and participants, to join us in a poll. We want to ask you a question, and we were really looking forward to hearing what you think about this particular question. Which has been the focus of your school's professional development during these uncertain times? And we have given you several options to choose from. First, becoming familiar with modified assessment processes for online teaching, enhancing technology skills for online teaching, for example, using Google Docs, Google Hangout, Zoom, planning and developing printed materials to reach students without internet access, acquiring soft skills, for example, communication and counseling, broadening your skill sets to embrace inclusive education, particularly for the most vulnerable in schools. Or you could actually say that there were no opportunities to do professional development, unfortunately, because of the tough and challenging conditions that you face. So we invite everyone to participate in this quick poll so that we can have a sense of how you, our friends from different parts of the world, are coping with one specific challenge, the question of professional development in our schools. Let me now call on our first panelist, Domingo, who will share with us his experiences and perhaps share with us some tips, some insights, some lessons as we move towards navigating the challenging landscape that we currently face. Domingo?
Hi, good day, everyone. I am Mr. Domingo A. Lozande, principal from Lingunan National High School, Valenzuela City, Philippines, and I am handling junior and senior high school department. Today, I will be sharing with you my journey as a new school leader, and as they call me, as a millennial principal, and how the teachers are coping with this uncertain times brought by COVID-19. Before the pandemic, I have created a transformational application project for the teachers, especially for the newly hired. I call the project as 3Cs, or Constructive Circle of Comrades. To some or to many, it may be a simple induction program, but for me, this is a very special project because personally, I was able to assist my teachers, and based on my experience, I was once a newbie in the public school. And there was a time that I would like to resign from my post because I felt the loneliness, I felt that I am alone. But with the help of my colleagues, my co-teachers, I was able to adapt and cope up with the situation that I am in. And that is the thing that I don't want the teachers to experience, to experience the loneliness, to experience that they were excluded, experience that they were alone in this new setup that they are in. So I have created this project, and several activities were included here, among which is the orientation of teachers, orientation and induction. I choose the application, online application Trello, for posting of readings, pictures, and videos that will provide an orientation to the teacher's duties and responsibilities, and will somehow make them to realize their purpose or their teaching purpose in the public school setup or system. And included also here are videos of success stories of teachers that somehow they can emulate. And another activity would be group sharing and group activities, wherein teachers has the liberty to express themselves. They can share their situation, their problems, how they are coping with the new setup, and how they are facing the children, how are they dealing with the children. And another interesting output of this project is the creation of the teacher's lounge. So before the teachers are in the corridor, so we decided to create a teacher's lounge for the teachers to have a quality circle or a quality time for them to have a productive talk. We also have the positive discipline area where most of the group sharing activities are conducted. But because of the pandemic, it is impossible anymore to have these face-to-face sessions and interactions. And that's the time that I came to realize that, do I need to stop? But I think I should not stop. Because this uncertain situation, the teachers really needs our assistance. That made me to realize to modify and to reinvent my project. And now it became the 3Cs+C, or constructive circle of comrades in a crisis, adapting to a new normal way. The project landscape changed a bit different because there will be no more face-to-face interactions, but the goal of the project or the aim of the project is still there, to provide technical, social, and emotional assistance to the teachers. But this time, not just only the new teachers, but also seasoned faculty teachers. But just like any other project, of course, there would be some key issues that needs to be addressed. The first one would be the teacher's competence and commitment. The teacher's competency is very important. And I am talking here about not just knowledge of the content, but as well as the use of pedagogy, the use of the right pedagogy, and incorporation of technology. Now, since classes will be done in an online platform with the use of the technology application, teachers should select the appropriate pedagogy and technology that would allow the students to be still engaged active in the teaching and learning process. Commitment is also an issue because a lot of new things will be done now. And it really needs time, effort, and a handful of patience for a task to be completed. So a lot of understanding is really important as we are continue to adopt and continue to move forward. Cooperation and collaboration among teachers is also needed as a support mechanism. Some can be able to adjust with the use of technology in teaching, but to some it would be a difficult thing, especially for the seasoned faculty. So it is important for teachers to cooperate with one another, to collaborate with other groups, to collaborate with other departments, to provide certain assistance that they need. And this support system can also be helpful, especially for those who are in emotional distress. Coping mechanism is a big issue in this pandemic. Many would really be in distress because different day-to-day activities were suddenly changed. Quarantine procedures were implemented, making the social interactions and activities of the people or of the teachers to change as well and became more limited. So it is important for us to have a certain communication with the teachers because in return, these teachers also provide assistance to the students that are in a situation the same with them. Now, how did we implement the project? First, we conducted a lot of informal interviews and observations. And then we planned, the Lingunan team planned for activities and processes that we think may somehow help and assist the teachers. Among these activities are virtual meetings, sessions, webinars, LAC, or the Learning Action Cell, peer and online support, supported by certain processes like, number one, orientation and training. So we provided teachers with the necessary training and orientation they need for choosing the right online platform, choosing the technology application that they need to be incorporated in their teaching. We also have webinars regarding health and safety protocols because they need it. They really need it in this pandemic. We also conducted mental health awareness webinar. Support and motivation is very essential as a process as well. We created teams, different teams to support the needs of the teachers. And that motivation or support is needed to boost the teachers to move forward. We also have sharing and reflection processes. Here, I also use the Trello online platform. I call it as a day of challenge. I do not use the social media application because our work is now incorporated in social media. So I make use the Trello to divert the attention of the teachers that they are not in work. So the challenges are posted here. Teachers can comment, they can converse with one another. And then at the end of the weekly activity, challenges are posted for the teachers to become more active, even though they are at home and they are in quarantine. At the end of the day, there are questions posted that can somehow help them as a reflection for them. What are they now in and how they are moving forward? Now, what are the obstacles faced? Number one, of course, internet would be a big problem. But ICT familiarization and utilization, I think, is the key there. We provided webinars, peer support, and learning action cell. We created a technical team, certain technical team, for the teachers to call whenever they have a problem encountered in dealing with online platforms and technology application. Prioritization, time management, that is another obstacle. We created a critical friend, a peer encouragement that somehow will motivate them to finish the particular task, and of course, constant communication. The big obstacle here would be the social and emotional distress of the teachers. Everyone was not used to a sudden change in daily activities and limitations in the movement of people. Some really have developed fear and anxiety that became a hindrance in the completion of a particular task for the preparation of distance learning opening. So I guess the key here is that we provide them with a constant communication. So me, myself, as a school leader, I make sure that I constantly making virtual meetings, okay, or in Filipino, we call it as kamustahan, okay, to provide assistance to the teachers. What are the key learning points that I learned? Number one, based on my experience, and of course you will all agree with me that teamwork and support system can make complicated and difficult tasks easier. The effort that each member contributes makes a shared responsibility that if one succeeds, everybody would succeed too. The support system given whether by family, friends, colleagues, and other people is vital to cope up with this uncertain situation. Secondly, learning truly never stops. Even in this time of crisis, people gains more experiences, adapts in the situation, hence they search for answers to problems. The crisis has also teach us that in any situation, whether be it positive or negative, we must continue, we must move forward. Lastly, the character of a person for me matters in this time of pandemic. A good heart is needed to extend all the means to reach out for the teachers, for others. Understanding the situation of one another should be considered, but not neglecting, of course, the duties and responsibilities given to him or to her. Lastly, what are the lessons I learned as a leader? Number one is to encourage and not oblige. As a leader, I learned that encouragement is motivation is the key, the most powerful key. Making them to realize that we need to finish this particular task because it is important and many would benefit from it. And not just to oblige them to finish the task because it is just it's just for mere records. Or it's just a compliance for them. The second one is to empower, not impose. A leader should empower people, should empower its members to make a ripple effect in creating more leaders and not to impose. Imposing that, making them to feel that they are mere subordinates. And a leader should also be engaged, included in the process and not be excluded. This would give a motivating effect and personally experience the challenges and success of the team. Lastly, set as a good example and be compassionate. There are no perfect leaders nor perfect projects. But what is important is that we are finding ways to support our teachers, that in return, they will support our learners and the future of the education system. Thank you all for listening, and I hope that you learn something.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dom, for sharing with us the different kinds of innovations that you have undertaken in order to address the challenges that you and all of us face during the pandemic. I particularly like your message of continuing to learn and involving your stakeholders, collaborating with them in these challenging times. We invite our attendees to send us your questions. If you have any feedback, if you have any comments to what Dom just shared with us. At this moment, I'd like to call on our critical friend, Allan, to ask a couple of questions in reaction to Dom's presentation. Allan, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Domingo, for a really good talk. Couple of things that struck me was the how important it was, the foundation that you had laid through the 3 C's. So you were in a fairly predictable environment. You got this new innovation to work at school, to get it working in collaboration. When it came to the crisis, you added a C to it, but you wouldn't have been able to add the C if you hadn't established that culture to begin with. So I think that there's a really important lesson there about how the crisis was not just purely new, and we didn't will it in just purely new ways. What we did, if we had good systems in place, we kept going. I loved your collectivism, and I very much loved your gentle approach to leadership, which came through again and again what you were doing and how important that was for nurturing teacher growth. Couple of questions, and I sent these to you, but one that I was particularly interested in to start with at least was where you talked about prioritization and the importance of prioritization. Now, when I was going through this with my faculty, I found that really difficult, because I had to care for people at the same time as I had to make the student standards were right. I had to make sure that the technology was there. What sort of criteria did you use to prioritise what was most important, and also what teachers were encouraged to use?
Actually, we are very lucky in the Philippines because we school leaders, before we start and before we are given this assignment or a school, we undergone several trainings, and one of the topic there is about how we are going to prioritize activities. So that is what I am using. I am using the urgency and importance as a means to prioritize things, and that is what I am teaching the teachers. Importance is that what would be the extent or how many would benefit when I finish this particular task. And urgency is that to finish this task is in a bit in as soon as possible. We also add about visibility and other more to the prioritization. But basically, we use urgency and importance when we are dealing with how to prioritize things in the school, especially in dealing with thinking about new projects, new activities in the school.
Okay, you had to be fairly flexible then, I guess, with the way you went. One more, if I may, Vicente, and it was interesting. You talked about making new leaders. Tell me, your whole culture was about collaboration, collectivism. The foundation upon it was built. But what did you mean about making new leaders? Do you mean formally or informally, or what did you do with these people to make them leaders?
When I say that we are making new leaders, as a millennial principal, I learned that an effective leader has this ripple effect of making new leaders, of course. The task should not be only delegated to, for example, for the members or the teachers, making them to feel that they were subordinates and you are the superior. I make sure that I am part of the process. I am cultivating and I am teaching them that this is a process, and in time, when you became leaders, this would be the kind of culture, this would be the kind of setup that we need to have in order to encourage more people to participate and to lead more. Because when we impose to them that they were just mere subordinates, they will come a time that it will develop to them that I cannot be a leader. I cannot lead. Okay? Wherein if you encourage them and motivate them, you participate, engage in the process, these teachers, these members would be motivated to strive harder and to become a leader in the future.
Great to see.
Thank you, Allan. Thank you, Dom. We have time for one more question. There are several questions that are coming in, and we'd like to thank our participants for doing that. We could address these questions later on. I'm taking note of them. So thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anita, for sending your questions. I'd like to read this question from John. Dom, how do you address the issues of teachers who are resistant to the use of technology? How have you navigated or overcome this particular challenge?
Of course, that would be a big challenge for me as a school leader, because in our school, I usually embedded the culture of a team, that we are in a team. So first, of course, we need to orient the teachers. We need to orient the teachers that this is the culture that we have. We are in a team. And if one would succeed, of course, all of us would succeed. We provided them with a peer to support. And this peer will basically be monitored by me as a school leader. Okay, and in return, we constantly communicate with the teacher. What is the problem? What is the situation? Okay, leading the teacher to experience that he or she is not alone in the process. Seasoned faculty may be hesitant, of course, in the use of technology. But based on my experience, forming the team and making them to realize that they are part of the team makes this aha effect. At the end of the day, they're going to say, it's a bit easier than I thought, because a team is there to support, rather than doing the thing, or for example, doing the online platform technology application alone, that the teachers would find difficulty, and then in turn, the commitment will decrease, and the competency, of course, would also tend to decrease.
Thank you, Dom, for addressing that really very important question, because we have colleagues, as you mentioned, they could be young, they could be seasoned teachers, and they may be resistant to technology. And your approach of partnering up your colleagues with peers is really a powerful way of motivating everyone to overcome these challenges. We encourage our attendees, our participants, to send in your questions through the chat box, and we're going to be reading them through our webinar today. We move on to our second panelist, and this is Vency from Indonesia, School Director of Kairos Gracia Christian School. Vency, kindly share us your experiences, please.
Thank you, Dr. Vicente. Okay, good afternoon, fellow educators. Before I start, let me introduce myself. My name is Vency. I am currently responsible in Kairos Gracia Christian School. I'm working as the school director in Kairos Gracia Christian School in Jakarta. So before I start, allow me to thank the Head Foundation for this opportunity. I hope this sharing will be beneficial for all of us. Allow me to share a little bit of experience on how my school puts an effort into reforming and transforming our teachers. Talking about nurturing staff, every school has different concern. Upon facing this current situation, Indonesia, particularly, a lot of schools in Indonesia are having a big challenge in infrastructure. But most of the schools are having a major challenge on the teachers' readiness as well. So teachers are not ready due to some reasons. These are some of the key issues that we are currently facing. Resistant to change. Teachers are used to bricks and mortar system. The current massive change has triggered inconvenience and also diminished teachers' confidence. So it forces teachers to be out of their comfort zone and urges for creativity. Aside from that, lack of skill in technology are also not only worrying teachers about their own technical skills, but also on how to cater students with the support needed. Of course, when the teachers are teaching online, their ability or their efficacy, they are all genuinely exposed to all stakeholders. So of course, making a mess on that will be a very, very bad thing to do. It's gonna be a decoy to their teaching career. Next is resilience. In this certain situation, in this certain condition, it has put teachers' emotional state at risk as well. So teaching remotely really drains teachers' energy. Moreover, not knowing when the school will reopen will be causing a lot of confusion as well for the teachers to plan for their lesson, for their future plan. So this may demotivate teachers as well in developing their best performance. School leaders, therefore, need to come up with agile strategies and approach to continue nurturing and maintaining the teachers' performance. These are some of the actions that we do in our school. First is building emergency support system. Building attachment to stakeholders is very important for the school sustainability. Having non-teaching staff right now not functioning that much, we reform our human resources to work more on building personal attachment with our stakeholders. They are assigned to assist our parents and students in handling technological difficulties, also arranging parenting sessions online, as well as responding to parents and students' concerns almost 24/7 daily. So aside from that, we also empower our human capital. COVID-19 has become a strong external drive for our teachers' acceptance of transformation toward technology, especially. Empowering teachers for collaboration will allow teachers to learn faster, and the process of transformation will be faster as well. Our school encourages teachers to improve their technological skill by splitting them into small groups based on their subject specialties and learn collaboratively. Doing this, learning is more effective and relevant to the teacher's specific needs. When teachers experience perceived usefulness and ease in using technology, they will find drive within themselves to voluntarily enhance their potential. So gradually after that, collaborative learning will be developed. Maintaining the teacher's well-being is also one of the things that we are doing. Teachers are the school's greatest assets. It's important to maintain them. Good relationship with teachers build work engagement and it will build engagement and reduces attrition. So aside from nurturing spiritual growth, we have to build attachment with our teachers, making sure that they are all well cared for. Likewise, we need to ensure also that our teachers feel appreciated. Though distance, as a leader, we need to figure some ways to continue motivating our teachers while they are working as well. So the attempt to survive on this crisis is not always smooth sailing. We too face challenges. Communication barrier. Communication is the hardest part among all the processes. Aside from network disturbance, teachers have their own mental models which affect their understanding and the way they perceive and solve problems. To our teachers, we open as many communication channels as possible and update information all the time. Updating teachers with detailed information, I think, is crucial because at the same time, we are imposing the need of flexibility from our teachers. There are also times that we do personal or small group approach to make sure that our teachers understand the school situation accordingly. So next is time limitation. As always, work of a teacher is endless. While with administrative work, I think teachers are having very little time to learn and explore for improvements. Working from home with family and children around the corner is even making it harder. Our school practices semi-flexi time for teachers. Teachers are obliged to teach as scheduled, but they are no longer requested to report 7 to 4 every day. Right now, professional development meetings are happening anytime upon agreement at their most convenient times. On the other hand, as the school management, the school leaders, we are switching our focus more on results instead of on detailed process. So of course, complete data and accountable reports are still highly required. From our relatively short experience in confronting this crisis, I think there are several key points that we need to remember in nurturing our teachers. We need to develop acceptance toward change among our teachers. When everyone embraces the change, it will be less complicated to navigate our teachers toward the common goal that we are setting. We will be able to sail forward from the same boat. Encourage collaborative learning. when collaboration is happening, it will make our the learning faster. Of course, in this period of time, collaboration is very effective in training our teachers. Value and take good care of your assets. Your teachers are your assets. Our teachers are our assets. They are our most important resource. They should be prioritized and maintained. So these circumstances causes many changes and bring a lot of learning opportunities for all of us. We need to be responsive toward the change of needs. Right now, everyone's life focus is diverted. Health and well-being is the first priority. However, school leaders need to ensure the school's sustainability during this difficult situation, not just in terms of our academic performance, but also financial stability of the school and also the teachers. It is necessary to be responsive to our stakeholders' change of needs. When parents and students' needs are changing, we have to adapt and adjust our education service. The faster the school can conform to the current needs, the better is the possibility for the school's survival in crisis. Openness in communication is very important to make sure that we are moving toward the same directions of transformation. Having clear and effective communication will minimize misunderstanding and reduce frictions due to different mental model that we are all having. It will not only build better understanding, but also form close attachment between our stakeholders. As part of our service industry, I think relationship and attachment are the key ingredients toward maintaining the school sustainability as well as retaining our teachers and students. Trust and delegates. Having teachers working from home is difficult for school leaders to control and manage. I think everyone are experiencing this at the moment. Therefore, we need to build trust so that we can delegate responsibilities and make sure that it will be executed correctly. Good communication will create trust. Sharing ideas, insights, opinions, as well as difficulties to our teachers will eventually develop their sense of understanding to the school. Their sense of belonging then is improved, as well as their willingness to work for the school's betterment. Where trust exists, responsibilities are delegated easier. One thing that we should remember in nurturing our staff, I think, is that there is no perfect formula for it. Each school has different cultures, different systems, organizational behavior are different, as well as capabilities. So as leaders, we need to figure out the most effective ways to touch the teacher's heart and drive them toward a better education service we all are aiming for. So let me end this presentation with a quote from C. Joy Bell. We can't be afraid of change. You may feel very secure in the pond that you are in, but if you never venture out of it, you will never know that there is such a thing as an ocean, a sea. So today, do not be discouraged of the challenges ahead of us. Be patient and believe that it is an opportunity for us to grow and eventually to be even better schools. Thank you. I think that's all I can share.
Thank you very much, Vency, for sharing with us your experiences in overcoming the challenges during this period. I particularly like your approach of balancing the welfare of your stakeholders and also the survivability of your institution. We now call on Allan. He might have a couple of questions that he would like to ask you. Allan, please.
Thank you, Vency. Fascinating. I admire your passion and your flexibility. I think some of the things that I learned from you was very much, I'd call you an appreciative leader, but ones that sees the interrelationships between the different parts of the school. For example, you saw the relationship between teacher competence and teacher well-being. You can't have one without the other. And what was brand new to me, I think, is how you saw the relationship between your community and family and your teachers. So your support structures were not just for the people within your school. You knew that they had to be home. You know that they may have been facing exactly the same issues. So an appreciative, relationally geared leader, and I think that came through very, very clearly in what you were doing. One question related to that appreciation, though, if I may, I love the way that you built, I think you called it an emergency support system for teachers. Can I just ask how you melded that support system with sometimes the hard feedback that teachers may have needed? So whereas relational's nice, there still has to be that edge and competence, as you talked about. So how did you balance the gentleness of the appreciation with the harder edge of the feedback to make them better teachers?
All right. So when we are talking about the building emergency support system, we are not only talking about teachers, students, and parents, but we also need to think about our school board, right? So, but of course, our focus will be on students and teachers and parents. That will be our priority. So when we are talking about this, sometimes, yes, hard feedback came overflowing even during this time. It is really open. And what we are doing with our teachers are we greet them so virtually because we are not able to meet at the moment. So we gather the teachers, we split them in several groups because we are having kindergarten level, primary level, secondary level, and junior college. So we split them into different groups and we greet those teachers. We did inform them the concern of the parents, feedback from the parents, and then building this support system, we are having some sort of small talks with them, like having them as a family, like treating them as a family. We have group session meeting with our school board only, simply talking about something else, out of school context. We talk about their life, their family, and other stuff. Aside from that, we are also having one-on-one session with our teachers sometimes. When they are having problems, we talk to them on one-on-one sessions. Sometimes we call on 2 or 3 teachers and we just have a chat. So those are some sort of psychological support from us for our teachers. And we also did some sending appreciation or gifts to their home. Those are the things that we also did, both to our students and also our teachers. So after certain times of, after certain period of time, we send those gifts with encouraging notes from us to our teachers, so that they will be encouraged on and motivated on doing their work. So yeah.
Great idea, Vency. I'll send you my address. Okay.
Sure.
Finally, can I just ask one quick one, Vicente?
Yeah, sure.
The other one is you've all talked about, both you and Domingo have talked about how you cared for people, how you looked after people. Now, in leadership terms, this takes a toll. This you are giving and giving and giving and giving. So a question I had for you and for both of you later on is what about you? How did you look after yourself as a leader, and did your broader system come in to support you, or did you still feel like you were, on the side of a mountain on your own? So what about your care and well-being?
Yeah, I think we definitely need that. Yes, we will go insane if we don't have our support system. So yes, I do have my own support system as well. So I have my colleagues, my family. I call it quality circle. So this circle, the small circle that I'm having, we are meeting every day actually. Virtually, we talk and we have a chat. We update ourselves with what's happening in the school, and most of them, when we are talking about school, then mostly, of course, with our colleagues at school. So yes, we do meet every day. We pray every day for the school and also for our teachers, for our students, for our parents. That's what we usually did. So I think prayer is a strong support also for us. By praying together, I think we are having our, inside we are supported. Aside from that, I also have one particular colleague. I think she's also listening at the moment. She's my critical friend. So she's also supporting a lot with everything that we do, always seeing something in different perspective. So discussing about this is also my personal support system, which enable us also as leaders to stay on track and be a good leader for our teachers. Try to be a good leader
So
for our
strong,
teachers.
strong and shared values. Good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vency and Allan. I'd like to also thank our attendees for sending us questions. Terence, Maria Carmela, Sherilyn, Zulistewati, Gianna, Linda, there are many. We will try to address all of them, particularly during our open panel discussion later. But there's one question I think that we could squeeze in now, Vency, because this is from Li Xin, and it's about private schools, right? So in this time of self-crisis, how do private schools balance the need to invest in professional development alongside the need to make sure that the institution survives financially? So what steps do you undertake to navigate this careful balance, Vency?
All right. Okay. Financially, yes, it's very tough and challenging at the moment. Aside that, we have to consider our parents, but we also need to develop our teachers' professional development. So what we are doing right at the moment, we activate our teachers. So before this COVID break, actually, we have a chance to start this technology training for our teachers. So at that time, we do not really recruit all of the teachers, but some of the teachers are voluntarily having this kind of training. And when this COVID break happens, then at least these people are having a slight, information or knowledge better than the others who are not joining any training. So what we are doing, we are empowering these people. I mean, we are activating all of these trained teachers to help other teachers. So that's how we built our teachers' technological skill at the moment. We split them into groups and we put them into several groups. And these teachers are sharing what they have learned, and they mentor those who are weak in technological skill. Then they mentor one-on-one session, could be at nighttime, sometimes 9 p.m., 10 p.m. they did that. So yes, so we actually activating our teachers who happen to have the training earlier. Aside from that, of course, we also send our teachers for a webinar and all, this kind of webinar and support. I think the school are still financing most of. We are trying to finance everything. We are trying not to burden teachers with all of those. The financial department are working on it. we don't really need to share our difficulties with the teachers, of course, but then we do have our challenges, but we try our best not to burden our teachers. The school are still financing for all the trainings that we are handling at the moment.
Thank you, Vency. Again, thank you also for our participants for sending in the questions. Keep them coming. And at this juncture, I'd like to call on Allan, our critical friend, and he will be sharing with us his reaction, his insights, suggestions for our panelists and for everyone listening in relation to educational leadership in a crisis. Allan, please.
Thank you very much. You may not know, we have been through these talks a little bit before with our two excellent presenters today. And as we looked at those before, I've gone through and I've had a look at what they're doing, how they're feeling, and I've put that together with some of the literature of what we know about crisis, which is rapidly changing and shifting and flowing. And I've tried to pull it together here. The first point I want to make is that we're finding more and more that leaders are forged in a crisis. So when we're in a crisis of unpredictability, of disruption, this really tests who we are as leaders. It's the only time, they say, when we really learn about our leaders. And as we as teachers and as leaders go through it, we will come out the other end of this different, whether it's in 6 months or in 1 year. And this will be very, very telling on what we are as leaders as we go through. We're told that great leaders become better people and better leaders depending on how they do and how they learn through that crisis. Now, think about the talks that we've just had. Think about what you have gone through during this different crisis. And I think we can frame it as a series of tensions. We were no longer in a linear, we were no longer in a simple, we were no longer in a straightforward world. We had things jumping all around. In other words, the knowledge that we had that had been tested and tried no longer worked. This puts us in a series of tensions or of dissonance between what we know and where we should be. Now, some of these tensions I felt, and some I think came across in the talks that we had. The first one was managing normality while managing disruption. People expect the leaders to keep things stable. They need to have some predictability in their life. Even when they're shifting online, they need to know, like when Domingo was talking to us, they need to know the values of the school and what it is. So as leaders, we have to try and keep this normality going, if you like, while also managing the disruption that comes in. Secondly, we had to look for speed while also looking for sense. Now, I don't know about you, but in the first few weeks of the crisis, when we were going online and we were doing this, some people were just rushing, but not stopping to back and to see if it was making sense to teachers. The two presentations today have shown how much effort they put in to help teachers understand what their job still was and what they had to do. The next one was pushing innovation while searching for coherence. We pushed innovation. We encouraged people to come up with their own ideas. We wanted teachers experimenting in their rooms with different ways to do things. But at the same time, we also needed to have a coherence for what we do. Our students needed that. Our communities needed that. Next one was probably the hardest one that I had, and that is how you care for people while maintaining standards. And that was at the root of my question just then. How do we care to people, which is our number one job, but also make sure the standards are upheld for our students and our teachers? A difficult tension. And the other one that I had, probably not Domingo, was acting in control when really I didn't have a lot of control because I didn't understand enough about the situation. So do you feel those tensions when you went through? Now, when I looked around me through my faculty, my heads of department, my leaders, my deans, I found a number of leader forms. These ranged on a dimension from the deniers, and there were really people like this that said, no, it's going to go away next week, it's going to go away next month, we don't need to do anything different. We had freezers. We had some people who just froze. Not all leaders responded like the guys that we've seen today, trust me. We had the perfectionists. It didn't work. You couldn't have anything perfect when you didn't understand it. The sort of leaders that I observed, that I found, and I think describe both of our presenters today is what I call pragmatic visionaries. Now, what do pragmatic visionaries do? You'll see that down in the last slide there, I've got a stability platform. This is what both the leaders who presented today did. They built a values-based stability platform within their organisation on which teachers could learn, experiment, fail, feel better, build relationships. That's our job as leaders, I believe. It's about how we build that platform to go. They also had both a short and a future-pointed purpose. So they had short-term, they knew in the next few months, this is what we got to do. But they also had a future-pointed purpose. They didn't just look at the period of the crisis. They were looking beyond that through their systems and their structures and their collaborative ways. Very important. They both had a really strong values platform. I think Domingo called this character. They knew what they believed, they knew why they believed it, and this is what carried them forward. This is what built the relationships. They had simple rules and prioritisation. They stayed ahead but became one of many. Now have a look at how they shared leadership around their school, how they built people through capacity building. They still had to stay there as a leader and stay ahead of the game, but they knew that they were just one of many who had the answers and the expertise in their school. They looked for what works, not the best answers. It's not always the best answer when you're in this. They had humility, energy, hope, and toughness. So pragmatic visionaries build that stability platform that is so important for us to be able to deal with crisis and with other things as they come along. So the questions that we might ask as we come into and go out of this crisis, if we build on the theme of visionary leadership, and I think this is worth all of us thinking about, me and everyone here today. From before the crisis, as we move, as we pass, as we evolve, what will I rebuild? What will I lock back in? What will I reboot from what I was doing in my school before? This is about the ongoing learning. This is what we have learned within and through the crisis that will in the longer term make our schools a better place. And what will I boot? That just means what will I get rid of? Has being in this crisis make you realise that some of the ways you do things, some of the things you do could be done much better? We need to ask ourselves, how have I and my teachers changed? Have we improved? Have we changed for the better? We need to then ask, what are our immovables? So as a leader, as a principal in our school, where is our line in the sand? So regardless of what context or situation that we happen to be in, what won't I be moved on? I can tell you, Domingo, I'm sure he will not be moved on that peer collaboration. It doesn't matter in crisis or not. Vency will not be moved on the relationships and the importance of the relationships. These are our removables as leader. What might my new rules be? How will I reconnect relationships once we're all back together again and once it's back another way? And it will. How am I going to reconnect existing relationships? How are the relationships going to change space as we go through? Where will we position technology? And the thing I used to ask all my leaders to do within my organisation is to tell me, what's the first thing I do when I go back to a brand new school year after this is it? What am I going to do as a leader? How will I go through? How will I deal with that? I think these are very important, and I think the pragmatic visionaries that we're talking about never, ever, ever start asking questions, and they never stop asking questions beyond the crisis. The failing, the trap we can fall into is just going back and thinking crisis always, it'll just keep going like this. But where will it take us? So I'd like to just finish with a quote here, if I may, and this challenges us as leaders. We, all of us, will be remembered for how we manage ourselves and others through this crisis. How will you as a leader, your team, your organisation, our society connect, persevere and progress? How will we emerge from this experience collectively stronger? In other words, how will we be further forged as a leader?
Thank you very much, Allan. Those are really provocative questions that you've asked us, some of which are even really existential in relation to how leaders will reset, reboot, and move towards where we are now to where we want to go. That's really terrific. Thank you, Allan. I'm sure we will have a lot of reactions, questions from our participants and also from our two panelists, and we'll be doing that shortly. Right now, what I would like to do is to share the results of the poll that we launched earlier during the start of our webinar. And here, as you can see, and just to remind everyone, the question was, which has been the focus of your school's professional development during these uncertain times? And as you can see, becoming familiar with modified assessments garnered 41%, enhancing technology had the biggest share, 72%, and this is really similar, or it touches on one of the points that Allan asked us, where do we position technology? planning and development of printed materials, 50%, acquiring soft skills, 23%, broadening skill sets to enhance and embrace inclusive education, 23%, and a small minority, about 4%, said that there were no professional development activities undertaken during these times of crisis. Again, thank you to our participants for participating in this poll, and this is really something useful for us as we move towards our panel discussion. So now I would like to invite our other panelists, Vency and Dom, and we are going to be addressing questions from members of the audience. Before we do that, could I ask Vency and Dom to maybe have a quick response, reaction to what Allan just shared to us? Let's start with you, Dom.
I was really moved about the presentation of Prof. Allan. Actually, I am now reflecting on certain points that he raised a while ago. First would be, sometimes with the use of technology, we are in a fast track, we are on speed, but we are not looking for the sense of what we are doing. And another one is, we tend to look for the best, but sometimes it seems that it is important to look for what should work and what would be the answer. And that little by little, we're going to work on and strive for the best. And then where will we put position technology? I guess that is technology should be controlled by ours, and technology should not control us. But it seems that technology is controlling the people, and that became a problem. And the last one would be, for my reflection, how do I reconnect relationships? That is a bit a problem. Now I am thinking that after this pandemic, how can we build relationship wherein we build connections through virtual setup or online platforms? That is what I'm thinking. I am reflecting on what Prof. Allan presented to us. Thank you, Dr. Vicente.
Thank you, Dom. Vency?
Yeah, I think I agree with Domingo. I think those questions are really striking everyone at the moment. So yeah, when this pandemic break, when this COVID break, everyone just rushing to survive. So we are sort of less thinking of, what are we going to do next in a long period of time. So what we are doing is mostly on how to survive on this period of time and what should we do to change right away. So I guess it was really true. I was really reminded by Prof. Allan's questions, which is really true. As a leader, I think we need to be at least one step ahead of our teachers. We need to plan, we need to see, we need to open our eyes to see in a broad perspective, how have we done, how have our teachers done, and how have we changed our teachers into their betterment, not us as a leader, but for our teachers' betterment. I think that's it.
Thank you, Vency. Allan asked that question a while ago about how you, Vency and Dom, actually take care of yourselves. And this brings me to a couple of questions from our participants. Anna is asking, how do you as leaders, and we can of course invite Allan to also respond to this question, how do we address situations where some of our colleagues are already doing self-harm to them due to the pandemic? They're stressed, and they're already thinking of self-harming thoughts. And then Terence asks you, the participants, the panelists and our critical friend, how do we uphold social emotional well-being? I think they're asking for specific ways in which our panelists are undertaking this. And perhaps Allan could also share with us what his ideas are. These two questions. Start with you, Dom, please.
Actually, I was also reflecting with the question of Prof. Allan to Vency about how do I take care of myself. Basically, different people have different patterns of how they are coping with the situation. Me as a person, me as a teacher, I experienced really depression in this pandemic times, in this experience of ours, uncertain situation. But to me, what I did was that, for me, in my experience, what I did is that I focused myself on doing a lot of things that I think would be beneficial to other people. What I am talking is about selfless love. That is how am I coping with the situation that I am in. But for my teachers, some of my teachers, their parents pass away because of COVID-19 and they cannot focus. The constant communication that we provided, the critical friend does not only be there to critic, but the critical friend is there to provide a mechanism of support on constantly monitoring the teachers or a peer or the ones the being affected and telling us what is the situation. And then we are going to talk about it, okay, secretly, privately, and then we're going to seek for some attention if it is needed. We're going to seek for a psychologist or for the hospital or other support. And then, of course, this critical friend will be the one who's going to deliver to the teacher. So for the teacher to feel that he has a private partner wherein he can confide everything. That is what I am doing.
Thank you, Dom. Vency?
Yeah, in my school, we do have what we call the quality circle or the management team, basically. So part of our management team, we do have one person who is quite strong in spiritual growth. And when problems like that appears, usually we do ask this particular friend to approach and talk to these teachers. When they feel comfortable with these teachers, then with this management, part of the management to approach them, then we will be asking her to talk to her, have probably going out. Yeah, if we are able to go out, like a few weeks ago, we are still able to go out. So we asked them to have a chat and talk about anything. So yeah, and in the end, we usually pray for them as well. So yeah, we do have our part of the team doing that. Aside from that, we also have like, if we cannot handle it, of course, we need to seek for a professional. So what we are doing, we do have some colleagues, we collaborate with other parties, like what Dom was doing as well at school. We ask from psychologists, we ask from doctors, we ask who happen to be our friends as well. So it will be easier. Yeah, so for those teachers, I guess they will also be comfortable when they talk to somebody they can trust. So we are also using other teachers. So it is not only one particular person from the management who will be approaching them. We could also use other teachers who are close to them to mentor. If we notice that this teacher is having a problem, then we can ask his or her best friend or best colleagues and or critical friend, if we call that, yeah, to talk to her and mentor her. I think
Thank you, Vency.
that's what we are doing.
Yes. Allan, your thoughts about this? Teachers who are in trouble?
Yeah, I wish I'd seen these talks a lot earlier. it would have helped me. As you know, in Hong Kong, before the COVID crisis, we were going through the social crisis with our students as well. So our universities had stopped. Yeah, I found it very difficult, actually. I had about 400 staff. So I had to try and do it systemically rather than personally. There were just simply too many people to try and match and take and whatever it was. So I worked with my senior management team and I asked them if they could allocate different people within their departments to, one, keep an eye on local students. The other one was we had a lot of foreign students, from the, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, etc., who were sort of stuck in a place away from home, so we gave special attention to them. I was lucky enough to have a psychology department who I charged with setting up an online or a phone support systems for everybody. But mainly, I guess I tried to build, a little bit like you guys, I've tried over the last few years to build a culture is that it's not just me and it's not just us, and that if we don't watch out for each other and our students, no one will. And I think on the whole, that tended to come in, but we had to get some more formal structures in place to do it. As you're aware, Vicente, universities are a little bit more individualistic than schools anyway, so it's a different way to do it.
Thank you, Allan. Another question that comes up from our attendees, and I'd like to address this to all three of our speakers today, is in relation to empowering our stakeholders. Maria Carmela asks us, how do we empower, strengthen middle managers, while at the same time making sure that accountability happens? I mean, I think this is framed in a question that now that we can't actually see what everyone is doing, how do we balance this with accountability? Vency talked about this earlier with the flexibility that they have in their schools. Charlene also raises this question about empowering teachers. And then Linda says, well, how do we train leaders for uncertainties? So essentially those questions, so two questions. How do we empower our stakeholders, teachers, middle managers? And in light of providing them with the skills to be empowered, can we actually prepare them for uncertainties? So would like to hear from our panelists. So this time, maybe we can start with Vency and then Dom, and then we can hear what Allan has to say about these questions.
Yeah,
Vency.
I think what we can do is actually we discuss a lot. We share a lot with our middle management. So preparing someone for changes, I don't think we can always prepare the perfect formula or perfect solution for some changes. We never know what will happen in the future, right? So what we can do, I think we talk a lot, we share with our middle management. We do have our HODs, head of department, we call it head of departments. So this head of department are mentoring our teachers by subject group. So what we are doing, we do a lot of talk with them. We share what is the condition of the school. We share a little bit more to them than to our teachers, so that they know how the state of our teachers right now, I mean our school right now. So by doing so, I think with this open communication, it will prepare them. They will be prepared that, oh, when there is some changes, then they will know. I mean, they will know first. So I guess empowering them, doing training for them, it might be hard, but we can impose something to acknowledge them that it is needed. This is the goal that we are aiming for. This is what we should do when we are to survive on this pandemic, on this crisis. This is what we need to do. We have to, our goal is basically to provide a good service of education to our students. Then, yeah, what are we going to do? Then we talk, we discuss. So I guess what I can say is more on a lot of talking, a lot of sharing, a lot of, openness in communication. That will be giving them readiness for the change in the future. Yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Vency. Dom, please.
I think on how we can empower teachers is that not just designating the tasks to them, but also participating, being engaged in the process. That is what I am doing. We have these coordinators in the school that I think in time they would be department heads, but I make sure that the teachers would not feel that they are subordinates over these coordinators. I designate the tasks to all of them, to all the teachers, and then I make sure that I am there. I personally mentor them. I regularly follow up them, just like what Vency mentioned, that the open communication will really be a big help in building new leaders with these teachers. And training in this pandemic is also possible. Maybe this would be a hard thing, but virtual connections with the teachers may do. And regular communication, perhaps.
Thank you, Dom. Allan, what are your thoughts about these questions?
Yeah, great question. I don't know who asked it, but very good question. First of all, in terms of preparing people to be able to deal with uncertainty, it is difficult when we don't have the skills because we don't know what the situation is. So I'm a great believer in that this comes back again to values, and it comes back to leadership values. within your school, and it comes into how you weave those within a culture. For example, do you allow people to make mistakes without coming down heavy on them? Do you allow them to learn from their mistakes? Do you support them when they make mistakes? I think this is both a way of building leaders and also a way of weaving that culture, that stability platform that I talked about. Specifically for middle leaders, I'm a great believer that they need dedicated professional development for the middle leader group. Not putting them in with other teachers or with other people to begin with, but actually letting them to get that basic foundation, if you like. I think that's really, really important. The other thing is most middle leaders are put there because of expertise in a particular area. So they should be trusted in that area while being given extended tasks to learn leadership beyond their specific area. And I think that should be something that is, that ongoing learning forever in the school. This is not just sending them out to a workshop somewhere. This is what we as principals do within there. But, I think the uncertainty thing, it keeps coming back to you, what you believe and how you look at it.
Thank you, Allan. Those are really, this idea of do we allow our teachers to make mistakes is one of the best ways for us to be able to sort of provide them with on-the-job skills to be able to deal with uncertainty. Terrific. Another set of questions, and all of these questions now deal with parents. And I'd like to ask our panelists to address this. So Marcus talks about the difficulty of parents who are actually not trained teachers. Mark Sung says that we now have parallel lines of teaching, people who are in schools, in their homes, teachers, and then parents trying to teach their kids. And then Rosanna talks about how do we motivate parents so that they become active or they be on the same page as we try to do teaching online. So I suppose the question we could ask all three of you is, in these times of the pandemic, what advice do you give to leaders in how to best manage parents, knowing that they're not really trained as teachers? How do you leverage on the strengths that parents have? So share with us how you deal with parents. Maybe we start with Dom.
Actually, in Valenzuela City, Philippines, we are very lucky that we have this so-called parenting camp, or we call it as a nanny teacher camp, that provides technical assistance to parents. But in my setup, in my school, the parents here, many parents are active. So what I did is that I tapped them, and then I provided with different leaders per street or per place or and then these leaders, these parent leaders, can somehow help other parents in dealing on what they are up to, what the situation and what their problem about the schooling. And in terms of distance learning, of course, there is an agreement that parents should be participative and engaged in the learning process. But the problem is that, of course, parents should need to work because they need the money to buy something. They need the money to buy food, medicine, etc., or necessities of the family. But living alone, the children at home and studying. So my advice for some leaders is to create a thing that the parents can still monitor their children. So what I did is that we suggested a reflection journal, a reflective learning, wherein the learners will fill up the activities that he or she done of the day. And then in the evening, the parents will check the journal and see what are the activities of his or her son or daughter. And then it will be reported to the school. Somehow this partnership will be a means of communication with the teacher. We can somehow adjust with what is the situation of the family and what assistance can we give to them by tapping also other parent leaders. And that is what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dom. Vency?
Yeah, so what we do for this condition at the moment, actually, the problem appears when we are in the lower level, basically in the lower level, like kindergarten, primary levels. So parents are really having a hard time in doing that. So what we did was we have our parenting class, something like parenting class. Actually, it's not on how to do parenting, but it's more on how to teach your kids. So we do have evening sessions with the parents during this COVID-19 virtually, teaching the parents. So aside from teaching students, we are also teaching parents on how to teach their kids. It is not compulsory for them to join in, but it is advisable for them to join when they are having difficulties. So during that session, they are also sharing their difficulties, how to manage their kids, the discipline of their kids. It's sometimes troublesome when parents are the one who teach them. So we give them some tips, we share, we invite teachers and also the school management. So we talk during those sessions. So yeah, I think that's what we are doing. Aside from, of course, some, like journal, we also did that. We communication through WhatsApp group. We are Indonesian, we are using a lot of WhatsApp. So yeah, so we do also a lot of communication there. In terms of technical stuff, we do also a system one by one. We talk to them one by one upon all the difficulties. So it was really troublesome for us, but it is worth it to do because it helps our children a lot. I think that's
Thank
all.
you, Vency. Thank you. Allan.
Yeah, I think great answers. I think how we utilize and deal with parents comes down to three concepts. One is respect. I still see a lot of schools where I do not believe that they respect the parents that they have. And unfortunately, often it is the vulnerable students and the vulnerable families that don't get that. So schools should respect parents, regardless of where they come from, even if they sound a bit crazy, like I probably did as a parent sometimes. It's important. Number two is communicate. In this crisis, I know where parents can no longer go to school. They can no longer have that afternoon conversation with the teacher. They can't go in and have a parent-teacher day. This is frustrating parents hugely. So communication, and I think everyone's got a lot to learn from what our two presenters did today, certainly in Australia. The other one is know your parents. You can't teach a 16-year-old boy properly if you don't know what he's doing at 2 o'clock in the morning. So you've got to understand your community. You've got to get into the cracks of the community and know what it is. It's really, really important. So know and care. And finally, utilize. I remember when I was a principal many years ago, we used to have a parent talent pool, we called it, where we got all parents to tell us what they were good at. And we utilised that tool in different school projects to get them come up and help. And that was about communication, respect and knowing as well.
Thank you, Allan. We have two final questions, one for Dom and one from Vency from our participants, right? Of course, Allan can jump in anytime, right? Zulistiwanti, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, is asking Dom, how do you foster teacher leadership? That's one. And then we have another question for Vency from Julius. Vency, how do you retrench teachers during times of the pandemic? So those are actually pretty difficult questions. But again, Allan can jump in anytime if he's willing to share his insights. Dom, let's start with you. Teacher leadership.
How do I foster teacher leadership? Teachers' leadership. Like I mentioned earlier, that it is just not merely imposing teachers what they are going to do, designating them what they are going to do, but merely focusing on and mentoring them, guiding them along the way as they go on their journey or task and completing the task. Basically, that would form teacher leadership. And of course, if these teachers would experience that they are involved, they are motivated, they are going to do the same thing with other people. They're going to motivate, they're going to encourage. And that way, they can also lead other people. They can also lead other teachers.
Thank you, Dom. Vency?
Yeah, I was I was trying to type and answer that question actually. So anyway, our school is trying not to retrench or not to lay off our teachers as much as possible, because everyone is also having a hard time at the moment. It will be very heartbreaking if we have to do that to our teachers who have been working for these years and they have done something for our school. So what we did, we do have some teachers who are not able to teach online. Let's say the PE teacher, physical education teachers, they are not able to teach online. So what we did, we talked to them and asked them, is there anything that you can do for our school? Is there any talents that you can provide for us and offer to our kids? So that's what we did, and we asked them if they are willing to do that. Then we are training them, asking them to search for resources and get ready before this pandemic. I mean, before the new academic year start, because Indonesia is starting the new academic year by last July, and this pandemic break by March. So we did talk to them beforehand. So we asked them, find some resources. If you know that you can teach that, find resources. One of our PE teachers, physical education teachers, are offering himself as an ICT teacher, whom, yes, we can see that he is actually, quite okay with it. Of course, not in a higher level, but in a lower level. But then we try not to lay off our teachers. That's what we are doing. We communicate, we ask them to gain as much knowledge as they can before we start the new academic year, and they start to kick off teaching other subject. At this time, at least we are not putting them in a higher level where the kids are really, really needing more knowledge on that. And that's what we are trying to do.
Thank you, Vency. So just to recap, this has been a really fruitful session. I agree with what Allan says. I wish I've listened to this talk sooner before the pandemic hit. So I learned a lot of things. Dom inspired us with the importance of collaboration. Vency highlighted to us the importance and the value of building and nurturing relationships. And then Allan provoked us into thinking about stability platforms. Until now, that phrase is in my mind. I'm thinking about it. How do we go around building or nurturing or creating stability platforms for our leaders to be able to navigate the challenges of the uncertain future that we face? With that, I would like to call on Vignesh again to formally close this second part of the webinar.
Thank you very much, Vicente. Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, thank you very much for attending today's webinar. I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of the HEAD Foundation to thank our three panelists, Vency from Indonesia, Domingo from the Philippines, and our good friend, Professor Allan Walker from the Education University of Hong Kong. Ladies and gentlemen, there have been some questions that have been asked both in the Q&A, in the chat, and also via email about the issuance of certificates of attendance. As shared during the first webinar, we will be issuing such certificates, details of which will be released during the third webinar. So please stay tuned, come back for the third session, and we'll share more. As I wrap up and thank everybody for attending today's webinar, for sharing their insights and provoking us into thinking more deeply, I'm also reflective. COVID has upended not just schools, it's upended almost everything we hold dear. It has called into question many of our preconceived notions of how society works, it's run, and what is expected of a leader. It is a crisis that we are facing. It is a crisis that we need to navigate, and I'm certain we will overcome stronger. But it is a crisis that has presented us with an opportunity to look more closely at how society is run, and particularly how our education systems have been managed over the last couple of decades. Our education systems in many countries have been effective and have produced some of the best students we could see. But at the same time, it's not always been equitable. It's not always empowered our educators, and it's not always benefited the most in society. So I hope that this webinar series that the Foundation has put together would benefit many of you who are educators and many others who are interested to know more about education, about the changes and challenges that education is facing, and learn something, be provoked to think more deeply, and maybe contribute more to the education sector within your own community and your own society. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, on behalf of the HEAD Foundation, thank you for attending the second part of our webinar series. A link to the third part will be shared in the chat box, and an email will be sent to all of you to register for the third session. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending today's webinar, and I look forward to meeting you again during the third part of this Educational Leadership in a Crisis webinar series next Thursday, same time, same place. It's a good day. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.